It's time to travel to the next room with Jane Asher, an exploration of the bigger picture surrounding life on Earth and what follows. Now, here's your host, Jane Asher, on Empower Radio.
Welcome back. It is always a good day when I wake up, I give thanks, and the realization sinks in that I am allowed the pleasure and I've got this wonderful opportunity to speak with intriguing people to help you with whatever you're doing with your journey in life, and especially with anything surrounding death. My name is Jane Asher. The show is called The Next Room. We're now in our 4th year. Every aspect surrounding this journey as it is now here and what comes after. We talk about grief. We talk about dying, hospice, wills and trusts, memorials, funerals, the green funeral or the green burial movement, you name it. And of course, one of my favorite topics, afterlife. So I'm going to interview a fabulous woman today. Her name is Sadie Beyl. Sadie was introduced to me through the amazing Jan Warner, which you guys have heard on this show many times. Love Jan. She is, I like to call her the reigning queen of grief. I don't know if she likes that title, but Jan basically through her grief created a Facebook page, which is humongous now. It's Grief Speaks Out. And she wrote a beautiful book called Grief Day by Day. Anyway, Jan introduced us. She recommended me to Sadie because Sadie is putting together this online grief event, and it's called From Mourning to Light. So Jan, of course, recommends me. I get connected to Sadie. Sadie and I have a chat via Zoom, and she's like, Jane, would you like to be a speaker on this online event? And I said, absolutely. Anytime I can help anyone with their grief or kind of to understand that death is not spooky, it's just part of life, I'm all about it. So welcome to the show, Sadie. I am so happy you're here, and your event is called From Mourning to Light, and it actually kicks off this Thursday. So it's really good timing for my audience because they can click on the link in the show page and register for free for this wonderful event that you're doing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for inviting me. I love to grab any opportunity I can get to get the word out there about From Mourning to Light. And the reason being is I want to reach as many people as I can. I started off, I don't know if this is how Jan started off, but I started off in Facebook groups, seeing people's pain, seeing them stuck, seeing them going round in circles. And I kept posting comments, and I realized that was exhausting. And I kept repeating myself. And so I set up a page called How to Let the Light In When You're Grieving. But even that wasn't enough. And then one thing led to another, and here we are. So okay. Here's the event, and okay. It's nearly complete and ready to go.
I love it. Let's back up and let's talk about why. Why does Sadie pivot in life? What occurred in 2019 that took you from the course that you were on to now being fully committed on this journey to help others through their grief?
You know, Jane, if I think back to 2019, it feels like a different universe. And even before that, because the story starts a year and a half before that, my husband suffered a cardiac arrest while he was running a half marathon. And the first miracle is he was surrounded by doctors. So when he dropped, his heart had an electrical problem and it stopped beating. So the doctors around him resuscitated him. There were emergency services on hand. It was an organized race. He was taken to the hospital immediately. And you know, Jane, that call, when it came through, they say, are you the next of kin of Paul Beyl? And I just can't even tell you where my soul flew to when I heard those words. And we loved riding motorbikes. So we only had one car. And then we both had motorbikes. And he'd taken the car to go to the race. And so I screamed at the guy on the phone. I said, listen, I have to get on a motorcycle now to come to the hospital. You have to tell me, is he okay? Because I'm not going to be able to ride the motorbike if I don't know. I'm not, and he just said to me, get a neighbor to bring you. I can't tell you anything.
Oh, boy.
Jane, I tell you. Anyway, one thing led to another. He survived it. And we spoke afterwards. And I said to him, you were dead. What is it you want to do with your life? You were dead. And we were both architects practicing architecture. We had our own practice together. We were renovating luxury homes. It wasn't that we didn't enjoy our jobs, but he said, I want to go to Italy and guide motorcycle tours. So I said to him, that's what we're doing. So we sold everything. We packed up everything. We developed a website for the tours. We started marketing on Facebook. We had people booked for the first tour. We had people interested. We had a whole group of women who wanted to do the second tour that was scheduled for May in 2019. We were packed and ready to go. And he wanted to store his motorcycle at a friend's house. And on the way there, he had an accident. And I was following in the car just behind him. So the miracle in that story is I didn't see the accident happen, Jane, but I came across it seconds later. And the trauma was enough. I only thought of this a few days ago. Thank goodness I didn't see it, physically see it. And he had an intercardiac device because of his cardiac problems. Sure. And the doctor said, if his heart stops again, this thing will kick it back into life. And when I got to the accident, he was dead.
Wow.
And I was running around in circles going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, as one does in shock. And there was a gentleman standing there going, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. But I only heard the story later that he'd done a U-turn. And the motorcycle, and Paul hadn't been able to stop in time. And so this man felt that it was his fault. But Jane, I have to tell you, I've never blamed him because Paul was already on a second chance. And I believe that when it's your time to go, it's your time to go.
Wow. What a story. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, the fact that you have this love of your life and you lost him not once, but actually twice. So you're now in Italy. You have this business to show people around on motorbikes and everything. What did you do?
No, well, we were 3 days away from leaving South Africa to go to Italy. So when Paul when Paul had the accident, there I was, all my bags packed, all my paperwork in place, airplane tickets. No home to go to, Jane.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I couldn't fly out and go to Italy. Well, what was I going to do? I couldn't lead motorcycle tours 3 days after my husband had died in a motorcycle accident. There was all the paperwork. There was the funeral. There was, and besides that, I was in such deep shock. I felt like I was walking 1 meter up in the air. I couldn't ground. I was completely out of my body. And I ended up living in my friend's spare room for a few months till I finally managed to pull my wits towards me. And then eventually I realized life actually is over here for me. I'm going to Italy. I'll see what's there. I'll see what's on the other side.
Wow. Thank God for friends, right? So here you are, you're in this spare room, and then you decide you're just going to go ahead and go for it. So you moved to Italy, which is where you live now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What brought you to, I mean, I know the circumstance that brought you to grief, but what made you take your grief and say, okay, I'm really going to start working with people? I mean, you were online, you were exhausted by constantly commenting on people's posts because you're being repetitive. So you decide to create From Mourning to Light, and also a course for grief that we have, and the link will be in the show page as well. That takes a lot of work, and you're basically wanting to help other people.
Jane, it started because in my friend's spare room across the road, they were talking about another lady who lost her husband a few months before Paul died. And they said, you should meet her, Sadie. So I went and met her, and we spoke, and we basically spoke and then cried and hugged each other a lot. And I mean, all we spoke about was our husbands, obviously, and what had happened. And then as time went by, I realized that I was in a better place compared to her. And I'm not comparing people's grief journeys, please don't get me wrong, but I realized I had tools and she didn't. And that was what the difference was. And my tools were for well over 20 years. I've been practicing meditation, mindfulness, breath work, Reiki, all kinds of spiritual modalities, just because I've always been interested. It's never been work I've done. It's always been workshops I've attended and things I've learned along the way. And I meditate every single day. Sometimes I meditate twice a day. And after Paul was gone, the only good advice I got from a therapist was get out into nature. And so I did. Every opportunity I got, I ran, I did yoga, I just moved my body because I felt so crawling in my skin. I can't begin to describe how I felt. I was just agitated. And I didn't realize afterwards that was, your hormones and your brain trying to shut you down. I only understood that much later. And that's what I've brought into my course. So the initial response and things that I did was totally instinctual. And then into my course, I bring I looked it up. Why did I feel like that? And why did I do this? And how did it make me cope and help me to feel better and help me to face my life again? And all of that is in the course, Jane. It's basically my journey.
Wow. Pretty darn inspirational, I would say, Sadie. I mean, you're coming from this very horrific tragedy, but as you mentioned, you had tools, you had things that you had studied that had helped you. And I love that you are encouraging, get out in nature and get in your body. Because really, when something like this occurs, we have no control, right? You have no control. You cannot bring Paul back. He is moved on to the next realm or the next room. What you can do is only within yourself. So how lovely that you are now offering all these tools. Talk to me about From Mourning to Light, which I am thrilled to be part of. I'm so excited that I'm part of your panel of experts. It's a free online event. It actually starts this Thursday, and there will be a link right there on the show page. So anybody that is grieving, and it doesn't matter what you're grieving, grief affects each and every one of us in a different way. So perhaps one of these speakers will give you something, give you some hope and a tool that you can use with your grief. So From Mourning to Light, tell me how that entire thing came together and how many speakers and how many days this free event is going to go.
Okay, so the impetus behind it was I'd done my course and it was written and ready to go, but I had no one to give it to. I didn't have an audience. and it just felt like it was dead in the water if there was no one to give it to. And you can't really promote on other people's social media. That's rude. And not done. I mean, and I wondered, well, why have I written this whole thing? What on earth is it for? And then as I was pondering that and wondering if I should just throw the whole thing in the bin and think about something else, somebody came to speak on a free event and she captured my attention. Her name is Shanda Sumter. And she said, I will teach you how to build an email list. And I thought, well, that's what I need. If I have people I can email, I can tell them about the course. And so I signed up for her program. But I did it purely so that I could get my course out there so that I could help people. And part of this course is you host an online event. And she says, you choose whatever subject you want. In fact, you don't even need to know your subject just yet. Just choose a date. So I chose the date, the 28th of April, without knowing what I needed to do or what it entailed to get to have a show on the 28th of April. And she teaches you leadership qualities, which have been amazing because, Jane, I finally feel like I've stepped into my power by doing this.
That is
I am a
so
leader,
cool.
and I've never said that to myself before. I am a leader, and I'm recognizing it, and I'm owning it. And it's an amazing journey. And I have to tell you this, it's because, okay, this is really, I might even cry, but anyway. So speaking to all these people is bringing up, why am I doing this? People are asking me that.
Right.
And then I'm going, well, okay, well, Paul died. So, and I was told by a medium, I went to see somebody, and she said, Paul had something he had to go and do, and that's why he's left. And as I was speaking to this person, describing why I've chosen to do this, it suddenly came into my head. It wasn't a thought, it was a message. There's a difference, and I know the difference. And the message said, this is the important thing that Paul had to go and do. He had to go for me to do this and become the leader I'm meant to be. And I just, you see, it's so true, because I wouldn't react like this if it wasn't true.
Right.
And as I didn't even know I was going to say that. And as I said it, I felt emotional like I do right now. And I knew it was the truth. And that only happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jane. It's this journey has just blown these doors open in my mind, in my spiritual life, and in this world. It's blown my heart open, Jane. I talk about it in the event when I'm interviewing people, so people will hear. Maybe I'm repeating this, but just speaking to people is also bringing things up for me. And I spoke to somebody and I said, I don't think I knew what compassion was before Paul died. I think I thought I knew, but after Paul died, now I know what compassion is.
Wow. You are tapped in, lady. My guest today is Sadie Beyl. And as you can hear, she is really just so genuine and so authentic, which are two of my favorite attributes when I meet a new friend, which I consider now, Sadie, a new friend. And big hats off to Jan Warner for connecting us. I love Jan. Everybody that Jan has linked me to has been just really great. Jan has a BS detector. You know, she can feel it, she can smell it, and she only aligns herself with people that she feels good about. So that's why I knew when she wanted to introduce me to you that I thought, okay, this is going to be good, because I can use the audience I have to help this woman get her message out, which if you're listening to the show, you know that she is right there. She is ready to help. From Mourning to Light, it is a free online event, kicks off this Thursday. Please click on the link and register for the event. I love when individuals offer their gifts, you know, and just say, sure. You know, like when you asked me to come on, I'm like, absolutely. I don't know if I can help someone, but if I can, I am all about it. So tell me about some of the other people that will be involved so far. That we know Jan will be, and Jan's wonderful. I mean, she just really, from her journey with Artie, here's this woman who's in deep, desolate grief, and she does a pivot and tries to help herself. And now her Facebook page, 2.4 million plus people tune in, and she does everything herself. She doesn't farm it out. She doesn't hire somebody to do silly memes or whatever. It is 100% her and her journey, which I love. So who else do you have involved in From Mourning to Light?
Well, first of all, thank you for your enthusiasm, Jane, and thank you so much for just being so warm to me and including me in this group. It's, I came in not knowing anyone, and now I've got this whole community. I love it. All right.
That's the way it should happen. That's the organic approach, Sadie. And you're welcome. I'm happy to help. So go ahead. Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's all right. There are 21 speakers.
Okay.
But we might have a few bonus speakers as well.
Okay.
So we have David Essel. He is a master coach. He also has a very large following. And he was an interesting character. He said that he'd written, he's amazing. He's so positive and so warm and magnetic. He'd written a course on grief, and then his parents died. So he told me he had to rewrite it. Then there's Robert Pardee, whose wife was terminally ill. She had metastatic breast cancer. She was also a medical doctor. And after she had her diagnosis, she took on the role of heading up palliative care at a New York hospital. So she threw herself selflessly into helping others in her dire need. And then we have Claire Williamson, who lost family members to suicide. And she talks about writing poetry and how she's the director of therapeutic studies. Sorry, I've got the back to front. She was the director of creative writing for therapeutics purposes in England. She's British. And she read us a poem in her video, and it's beautiful. Then we have Denise Stillwatch. She's a coach, a grief coach, and she's from Australia. She lost her husband too, so we had a great connection. Then we have Sherry Forsyth. She's from South Africa. She's another grief coach. She lost her son. Then we have Peggy Green, also speaking about suicide. I don't know. Suicide to me just feels like worse than anything, because I think of the guilt attached to it. Like, could I have done something? Why didn't I know? I don't know. Suicide for me, there is no measure of grief. Grief is grief, but suicide is just heavy for me.
Well, I think it's heavy for a lot of people. It's a dark space because, and not knowing, there's such a stigma attached to mental illness. And that's a lot of it. A lot of people that, bring that on or decide to leave because they just can't cope, that they don't have the capacity to stay here. So they need to leave. And so I think that's what's hard, is those that are left behind. So I'm glad you're having experts that are going to talk openly about suicide. It is so, so, so very important. It really is. So good for you.
You're right. It tends to be hidden away a bit, and there's shame attached. A lot of shame.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, and there should not be. It's so sad. And those that are left behind, you're right. They're like, what could I have done? I didn't see the signs, whatever. Because they do say that, or I have read many times that if someone commits suicide, you won't know about it. The ones that say they're going to usually don't. It's the ones that never say a thing and they just go. And that's why it shocks so many people. So
I've just realized that as well. Just listening to these people speak about it, I realized there was no sign, there was no knowing. So the next expert speaker is Holly Duckworth, and she specializes in mindfulness. So she has a wonderful technique that she's sharing with the audience on how to practice mindfulness. And obviously she has more tools if anyone really wants to take it up. And then there's Shelley Mckinley. She is also a widow. She lost her husband. And she lost her husband, and she has children. And she spoke about how difficult it was to tell her children that their father was gone. So each speaker, although you think it's going to be repetitive, each story is unique in its guidance and its message. Then there's Karen Arnold. We have Melissa Bartolferi. We have you, beautiful Jane Asher, speaking about your personal experiences. We have the stunning Jan Warner talking about her experiences. And then we have Andrea Grace Phillips. And we have Michael Tessalona. And Michael Tessalona is going to talk about divorce as well, because he lost his sister, but then he got divorced. And he's going to talk about the similarities between divorce and losing someone to death.
That's a lot of grief.
I think that's a very important topic, that people who've lost someone to death feel that divorce doesn't touch it. But I think they're wrong there. I think divorce is a heavy grief. Then there's Charity Pimentel-Hyams. She is amazing. She talks about surviving. She's a widow too. So she wrote a survival guide, and then she talks about dating after you've lost your husband. And she's a refreshing voice because she goes there. She talks about, she realized she didn't want to find another partner. It was about something else, but you'll hear all about it in her video. Then we have Terry Wellbrock. Oh my word, what an incredible woman. I connected with Terry immediately, like you and I connected, Jane, and my word, her story, if you only watch one video, watch hers. I think hers is the most incredible triumph over hardship I've ever heard. So if you think you're having a hard time, watch Terry and you'll rethink your situation. Then we have Samantha, and her surname is not here, but I think it's Rush, Samantha Rush. And then we have Shelley Buck, Kathy Curtis, and then one or two unconfirmed. So I won't say their names until I'm sure.
That is an impressive list. From Mourning to Light, a free online event that starts this Thursday. Just go to the show page on Empower Radio, and it will have Sadie's bio. It will talk all about what she's been up to. There's a link there if you want to take her online course. And please join us from Mourning to Light. I mean, I'm so excited. I personally want to be involved with all of it. I don't know if I'll be able to take in every single one, but I certainly will attend myself. And, what a wonderful array of speakers that you have. I love that you're doing this. And I have a feeling that this is your first annual.
No, it's actually 3 years.
Oh, this is the third year for doing Mourning to Light?
No, this is the very first event. Sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying. Yes.
Okay. I was like, wow, I missed a couple years.
No. This is the first few months.
Right. Okay.
No, I've never done this before, Jane. I'm learning as I go by the seat of my pants.
That's why I said it's your first annual, because I have a feeling there will be a second and a third and a fourth. From Mourning to Light, Sadie Beyl is my guest on The Next Room. Sadie, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's late where you are and it's early where I am, so always finding a right time. I will put everything that anybody needs to know about this and how they can reach you as well if you want to do You do personal coaching as well? Grief coaching?
I do it with the course. So people have the option of just doing the course at their own pace, or they can do it with a program with me in a group. So we jump on a Zoom call every week.
That's great.
To go through each module.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Sadie Beyl. I appreciate you coming on the show. The next room, it is just so much fun for me to be able to do this. Join us on our Facebook page, which has really been growing quite a bit. You can follow us with Twitter, or you can join me on Instagram. I am just so blessed to be able to have a show to speak with these experts on every aspect of death. And I appreciate you, the listener. I mean, you guys are the ones that are downloading the show and sharing the show and listening to the show on a global level. And I can tell you that the show is growing so much that some things have got to change. And there's going to even be more access to the next room in the very near future. So thank you to you for listening. Thank you to my guest, Sadie Beyl. You've been listening to The Next Room. I'll talk to you again next week.
Join Jane again next week for The Next Room on Empower Radio as she examines the beliefs, traditions, and personal evidence of connection with those who have moved on to the next room.